Joining us at the beach today, Adam Carolla.
Funny guy, you know him from The Man Show. He's currently working on a documentary about free speech on college campuses called No Safe Spaces. Let's talk to him. What can you tell me about your life before becoming a professional comedian? What kind of weird jobs, bad jobs did you have? What did the struggle look like?
How long's the show? I graduated high school with a 1.7 GPA, and that was getting an A every spring and fall for baseball and football. So if you backed out 6 A's, you can imagine what my scholastic work was like. I never took the SATs. I never even took an algebra class. I graduated high school barely. I went and cleaned carpets for a carpet cleaning company, and we just cleaned restaurants in the middle of the night after they closed. Eventually, I wandered on a construction site where I became a laborer. I cleaned up garbage and dug ditches and tore ivy off the side of houses and dragged it up the hill and threw it in the dumpster. And eventually, I knew that was the only way out, so I learned. I bought tools. I bought a truck. My foreman told me, if you buy a pickup truck, we'll give you another $1 an hour. And eventually, I became a carpenter. And so that was my job, just working as a carpenter in Los Angeles, doing earthquake rehab work, doing tenant improvement work, doing residential, whatever. That's all I did. I did drywall, I did framing, I did foundation, I did finish, I did everything. And at some point, I realized this is no way to live. So I started working on comedy. I became a boxing instructor. I met Jimmy Kimmel, who was working at a radio station as Jimmy the Sports Guy, and the rest is history.
What do you remember? What are the specific details you remember about being broke for how long while trying to give this a go as a career?
I remember, driving one beat-up pickup truck after the next and not having car insurance and always having a roommate and always living in a bad apartment and always getting parking tickets because there was no place to park. It was always out on the street. I remember I had a Nissan pickup truck and I was moving to Hollywood and I didn't have insurance, and the only thing that worked right on the truck and that was worth anything, it had a Sony digital stereo, and I spray painted it brown because the dash was brown, and everyone said, "Why'd you spray paint the stereo?" And I said, because the truck's going to get stolen and someone's going to steal the stereo, and you can't resell a stereo if you're a junkie and it's painted brown. And I also put a fuel cutoff switch on the car that cut off the fuel pump, and that car got stolen 3 times, and each time I found it down the street because there was just enough fuel in the bowl of the carburetor to start it and run it about 200 feet, and then it would conk out, and the radio would be in it as well. And eventually I just started starting the car with a small screwdriver because the ignition had been pulled out, but I had the fuel cutoff switch in the brown radio, so I didn't care if it got stolen. And I was a guy who would literally get my car stolen, and when I would get it stolen, I'd just figure out what direction it was pointing where I parked it, and I would just start walking. And once I got to it, it would be there.
So when did it change? Because it couldn't have been upon meeting Jimmy Kimmel, right? When did your financial situation change?
They did a fight on K-Rock, Kevin and Bean in the morning. It was between Jimmy the Sports Guy, who'd been there for about 3 months, moved out from Phoenix. This is in 1994. And the other guy was named Michael, the maintenance man. I was a boxing coach, and they kept saying, we need instructors, we need a coach, we need equipment. I just showed up at the radio station, said, I teach boxing, what can we do? And I couldn't get into the radio station. Long story short, somebody was going in, and I said, tell them there's a boxing coach waiting out by the elevator. Eventually, Jimmy came out. We started. He lost the fight, but he thought I was funny, and he said, you can call in and do a character on Monday, and I won't even tell him you're the boxing coach, and it's probably not going to go well. And it did go well, and I called into the radio show for about the next year for free, and eventually they said, they'll give you $50 a bit. And I started doing bits on the morning show, and the next thing you know, Jimmy and I were having lunch almost every single day saying, we got to do our own show, and somehow the Man Show came from that.
As someone who didn't necessarily know how to get to show business, give me an example of some place where you found yourself looking around. I don't know whether it's one of Kimmel's parties when Affleck and Damon are there, or some other place where you're like, how the hell did I get here? How did the construction worker arrive here?
The first, by the time you go to Kimmel's for a Super Bowl party and you're sitting in between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, when the Patriots win in dramatic fashion, which is insane to be bookend between the two Bostonians when the Patriots win in dramatic fashion. That's all great, but I'm a little bit used to it. To me, when I first got into K-Rock in the radio station, and at some point I'd been in show business for like 9 months, and we went to the big K-Rock Acoustic Christmas concert, and at some point I ran into one of the members from Guns N' Roses, like Duff or something, and he said to me like, "Oh, hey, are you," my character was named Mr. Burcham. He said, "Are you Mr. Burcham?" And I said, yeah, I am. That's my character. And he said, yeah, Axel thought you would be a lot older. And again, I got off a construction site about 7 months earlier, and Guns N' Roses was the biggest band in the world. I'm like, why, in what universe is Axl Rose having thoughts about me and my age? And that was the mind blower.